And welcome everybody to another edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast with, of course, yours truly, Charles Barnes Richey, an exciting one coming up on this edition as we get ready. We are a full week away from the Steelers season opener as they will open up on the road versus New York Football Giants in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. That game will be on Monday Night Football as we get into a lot more stuff. The biggest news being at the end of last night, Cam Heyward and the Pittsburgh Steelers finally agreeing to a new deal for him, an extension. He is extended for another 4 more years, which will run him through the 2024 season. Plus, the Steelers also made the announcements of their new team captains pretty much today, and congratulations in order to guys like T.J. Watt and Jordan Dangerfield. They become first-time captains in their careers as they have been playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, Jordan Dangerfield, who has been around since 2014, mainly off the bench. But then you also got the other 3 captains on there. It is Ben Roethlisberger and Marquise Pouncey on the offense. And for the other defense player, so you got 3 on defense, with the third one being Cam Heyward. And happy congratulations over to Cam once again. It is a beautiful thing to see right there. There was a lot of doubts with him and his agent, as everyone remember this past month, trying to orchestrate a new deal, a lot of uncertainty going on with COVID-19, how that was going to be affecting the salary cap as it related for next year. But, I mean, you really got to see what was happening here. I mean, with the Steelers, I mean, how they're still proved to be able to take care of their own. But I think a lot of it, in my opinion, I mean, you look at a lot of the roster cuts that were made. I mean, at the time, he had about 15 guys that were signing off to the practice squad. They cut about 27 guys back on late Saturday, or early Saturday afternoon, I should say, which reported a few hours later. And when you look at Sunday morning, heading into that contract, remember, there were a little over $9 million in salary cap space with all the contracts in there, mind you, including the ones that don't account that are not part of the top 51. So that had a lot to do with it as well, I felt. And for a guy like Cam, too, I mean, who's really put in his work, I mean, for all he's doing, I mean, over the years, I mean, you really got to give it to them for right now. What you could just really just say right here, I mean, give big-time kudos and major props once again to the dynamic duo of Kevin Colbert and Omar Khan, and of course, Art Rooney. But, I mean, those two in particular, I mean, pretty much safe to say at this point in time, they are salary cap gurus at this point. And it's just really a testament how they continue to take care of the guys. I mean, unfortunately, I remember around this time last year going into the season, I mean, when you looked at it, I mean, there was no deal for Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he had to sell for the franchise tag once again, which he did, I mean, which was forced to be offered to him since they could not strike a new long-term deal. He punted on taking that deal. And basically, it was just a season that was left lingering, basically. And I mean, you couldn't just help but feel right now, I mean, for him, I mean, listen, I mean, a guy like Cam Heyward, he's just been a great captain and a great representative on and off the field. But one of the things that we hear from a guy like Tunch Ilkin, who's a current radio analyst, a former player for the Steelers, as an offensive lineman, I mean, one of the biggest things that he always said, too, I mean, he was one of many that alluded to this. This is a guy who's been making all pros in the last few years at the age of 30. I mean, when you look at, I mean, Cam Heyward, I mean, in his career, in his prime, I mean, when you look at, like, the last few seasons of his career, when he was 28 through 30, he made 3 straight Pro Bowls, which is his first 3 in his career, and made 2 All-Pros in between. And his last one being 30 years old a year ago. And, I mean, those are just huge, striking, significant moments. I mean, when you really think about it. I mean, that is very impressive stuff right there. I mean, this guy did not come in here nonchalant. I hate to say it though, and I'm not trying to beat up a guy like Le'Veon Bell, but you gotta really look yourself hard in the mirror. And I want to see a guy like him stick around. But in my opinion, and I don't know about anyone else, but I think this makes Le'Veon Bell looks worse in so many levels, in my opinion. I'm going to say that right now. I don't care who's watching this. If you guys want to disagree or disagree with me, listen, I mean, Le'Veon Bell was playing by the rules last year. I get that. But at the same time, too, there's a way you also go about handling things, trying to be there for your teammates. I mean, I want to see you guys get money. I mean, I don't want to see anyone feel like they're getting shafted. But at the same time, I think having your full teammates support and the president, you're going to be there. I mean, where it's grinding it out in training camp. I mean, being safe with your bodies. I mean, those core values, and I know it's kind of hard to, like, really identify with it these days. Well, we're living the times where we're trying to show love and respect to our black brothers, too, especially fighting for her protesting. I mean, you look at everything that's been happening around. There's so much controversy just happening around our society these days. And I just feel like, some people feel like, with the NFL, especially being a cutthroat business at times, including with the Steelers too at times. I mean, they have to make some tough decisions. But I mean, at the end of the day, they are fair. I mean, where you like it or not. And you know what? The thing is, Cam Heyward, I mean, has been doing everything that he could ever do for this organization. And I just really feel like for him, he's did it the right way. And again, I don't mean to be taking shots at Le'Veon Bell, even though I kind of am right now, but let's face it. I mean, a lot of people will probably be looking at it, scratching their heads like, wait a minute, you could take care of a guy like this, but not Bell. Again, it's the way you handle things. And I'm not denying that Le'Veon Bell deserved to have, his guaranteed money. Could have been staying around with the Steelers, but still, there's another where you feel like, your teammates are being showed off. Because remember, 2 years ago about this point in time, as it was like 3 days before the start of the regular season, basically, or 3 or 4 days, I should say. I mean, you heard guys like Ramon Foster, who's now retired. Of course, Marquise Pouncey, Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, Ramon Foster, who I think made the biggest one, too. I mean, just saying, like, he's making money more than I'll ever make at my position. And when we look at it. And, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind. I mean, that is true. But, I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, listen, you made your own bed, and then you're hesitating on whether you're going to join or not during the season. I mean, listen to your agent. I mean, I'm glad you got yourself taken care of financially later on in the long run. But, I mean, it'll be a big-time wait and see this year as he is with the Jets. Again, I mean, Le'Veon Bell, just no doubt. I mean, Cam Heyward, no doubt about it. Congratulations once again to him. He's earned it. And I just really believe he's done enough in his career, I mean, to really be one of the faces of this franchise, I mean, for a long time. And it's a beautiful thing. You know what? It takes a lot of, like, guts and courage right there. But, I mean, at the same time, too, remember Kevin Colbert was saying about a week or two ago, they weren't totally slamming the door on looking into other opportunities. I mean, with any other contract signings, with a guy like Cam Heyward of this franchise, it made sense. I mean, for a long time. I mean, he did mention that. I mean, they just couldn't make any certain promises because everyone was aware of how much possibly this salary cap could drop by a reportedly expected $35 million. And like I mentioned, too, I mean, going into this going to this salary cap after they made their adjustments, I mean, right now, when we look at it, I mean, the overall team cap space for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're about over $7 million, $7.04 million in cap space. And I'm not expecting them to make any other signings. I know you got one guy who's floating out there in the NFL looking for a job, like a guy like Adrian Peterson. But I'm not sure if that's going to really happen at this point. I mean, that's one guy who I'm going to touch on a little bit later in the podcast here. Again, if you guys want to follow me on my social media, once again, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey. For the Mass Steel podcast, you can follow me at Mass Steel CJR on Twitter, at Mass Steel Nation on Instagram. Hope everyone is having a safe and memorable Labor Day weekend as we continue to hit it up right now. Exciting times right now. Still not holding my breath on if we're going to see a full season, but I got to tell you, my confidence feels sky high right now. I mean, yet we're still possibly getting a rude awakening with this pandemic. Supposed to get a little bit nastier in the fall. I mean, let's just wait and see how that pans out. But again, I really do feel for right now, the NFL, I mein, they've been taking the necessary precautionaries, trying to get environments safe. And I disagree when I hear people say, I mean, when you look at like other like schools, like some colleges, some high schools, I mean, it is unfair to them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, where they can't be having any football for their young athletes or their students, but yet the NFL is going to try and ram it down their throats. I disagree. No, the thing is, you got to understand too. I mean, my heart feels for a lot of those young students, athletes who are trying to work on getting scholarships, go over to schools. I mean, grant football is not the most friendliest of sports to warm up to these days because of the brutality that we've seen in the last decade that's been uncovered by the concussions. But I mean, the biggest thing you really have to be aware of too, I mean, listen, this is a job at the end of the day. I mean, this is nothing to really mess around with, where you could be seeing futures, I mean, of teams' fortunes be impacted significantly. And the problem is, I mean, with that, we fail to understand. I mean, listen, everyone is losing money around this time. I get that. There's a lot of people work from home, probably people collecting family. I mean, unemployment right now. I understand that. But again, you also got some younger guys who are trying to play for their future, their lives. And I know it's a lot more harder to concentrate when you got like a couple of weeks ago, too, and more recently in Wisconsin. I mean, with the shooting Jacob Blake, then you have George Floyd, his murder, a police brutality a couple months ago back in May. I feel like the NFL has been doing everything they can to like support Black Lives Matters. I mean, within the last year, especially having a guy like Jay-Z come over, I mean, sign a deal with the NFL's partnership. I mean, trying to do everything they can to open up, I mean, address issues of social justice, racism in this country. It's not always perfect, but I do believe they have been trying to spread the message as best they can. It's not always the most prettiest, the most convenient way, but I do believe they care. I mean, especially when you look at a league who's got a majority of white owners and hardly any person of color except for like the Jaguars owner. I forget his name escapes me. But anyway, I mean, bottom line is they are trying to make change. I really do. I mean, they have been trying to look out for the safety of the players. I mean, this past preseason, there was no preseason. That was wiped out. I mean, the NFL was trying to, like, thin it to 2, yellow in 1 game. But as you remember, at the end of July, too, going in the early part of August, I mean, it was agreed by the league and the players' union that there would be no preseason. Instead, you're just having, like, teams going with some ramp-ups and some intense reps where it's with weightlifting or whatever, just playing against your own team in sets, offense versus defense. And I'll be honest with you, once things do get back to normal, I'm not sure if I want to completely wipe out preseason. I still believe it is important to at least have yellow in 1 game, maybe 2 games at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, when we are on normal and you are trying to compete, you do want to have a nice rhythm and momentum and a lot of communication going in here. Again, we are a week away from the start of the regular season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Actually, less than 3 days away from the actual official opener of the NFL across the board. Prime time stage, Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Houston Texans. A rematch of the AFC divisional playoff game from last year, which saw one of many double-digit comeback wins by a guy, Patrick Mahomes. And yes, Steelers Squad 4-2. Thank you very much for joining here. You got to at least have 2 preseason games. Yeah, I think 2 is fair enough, but I think 1, I mean, you could probably get away with. I mean, until we go like a full year, I mean, with this pandemic, I mean, the thing is, too, I mean, you're trying not to get as much exposure. And remember, just to recap, too, this year is supposed to be having, I think, with the helmets, kind of like a shield guard in a way, underneath like the like where you wear like the helmet and then like the breathing area. So we'll see how that's gonna be effective if that continues to still debut for this year. But yeah, I really feel like right now what we have to look at. I mean, yeah, you want to evaluate your young talent. But at the same time, too, I really do believe, I mean, for this year, we really got to see a lot more, I mean, for this time here. And it's just really hard to say how you go off that. The only other thing is, I really do believe Mike Tomlin has done everything in his power to prepare this team. I mean, you've been hearing throughout, like, his speeches with the players, or I don't know if you ever got a chance to see the Pittsburgh Steelers standard episodes on YouTube here as we look at it. I mean, those are definitely some awesome like documentaries. Just to see how Coach Tomlin has got his team prepared, make sure they're being in the safest environment possible. I mean, for this time. I mean, and I like I said, I don't mean to go back in time, but almost a couple of weeks ago now, or over week and a half. Yeah, wonderful, beautiful speech right there by Mike Tomlin, staying in unison with his players right there. I mean, as he all said, I mean, we're all standing up here as fathers, husbands, family men, friends, neighbors. I mean, basically, I mean, especially during these times right there and trying to stand united as one. But I mean, the key thing is with Mike Tomlin, it's like, everyone's got to be lockstep in this to make this work. Yeah, and honestly, I'll tell you what, Steelers squad, I do think next year is going to be a good sign of things to come. I mean, obviously, we want to see the Steelers get not only back into the playoffs, but you also want to end a 4-year drought of not winning a playoff game. I mean, which you won 2 out of 3. You know what? I definitely feel like that is definitely very doable right here. I mean, I think he had like Andrew Filipponi of 93.7 The Fan. I mean, just basically saying that, just getting to the playoffs and not winning a single playoff game would be unacceptable in this situation. I could definitely agree with that, because I definitely do feel like if you want to, I mean, if you're not going to get back to the Super Bowl, you do want to at least get back into the playoffs, make an impact for that time. I mean, and that's just really what it is, plain and simple. Let's go with some other topics here. I did mention in the description, hopefully being joined by Brian DiArdo. I mean, if not, we're trying to work out something hopefully in the next few days. So he's already aware right now. He's actually busy getting his reports done right now. Remember, he's the NFL writer for CBS. You can check him out on cbssports.com. Has a lot of interesting articles here, which he does. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Brian DiArdo right now. A significant cut, I really must say right now. Jordan Berry, who has been a punter since 2015, he has been released right now, and taking his place right now for the Steelers is actually former Chiefs player and recent Super Bowl champion who played on the Chiefs squad for the past 15 years. Talking about none other than Dustin Colquitt. Colquitt, he is the son of a former two-time Super Bowl champion of the Steelers under Chuck Noll's team in their last two Super Bowls that they won at that point in time. He played for at least for a total of 6 years, 1978 through 1981, and then 1983 for 1984. Colquitt, as mentioned by DR, though, says that he was released by the Chiefs in April, came to Pittsburgh for a tryout on Sunday, and apparently did enough to convince the Steelers to sign him. Colquitt's success at Tennessee made him a third-round pick in the 2005 NFL Draft, a Pro Bowler in 2012 and in 2016. He averaged 44.8 yards per punt during his time in Kansas City on 3 different occasions. Colquitt posted the NFL's longest punt during the regular season. And there's the information right there. Thank you very much, Brian, my man. Like I said, hopefully you could still join here in a second. If not, you know me, we'll have a good rapport with each other going forward. So not a big deal if we can't do this tonight. But thanks anyway for always having each other's back, including mine, all the time here. But, yeah, I really feel like that was interesting right there. I mean, Jordan Berry, I was surprised. He was the punter since 2015. Remember, he replaced Brad Wing. And I thought Brad Wing was pitiful with the Steelers during his time. I mean, there was a lot of times where he put the Steelers in some bad spots. But still, I mean, you look at Jordan Berry's overall career with the Steelers, never making the Pro Bowl. But, I mean, still, I mean, his punting, his career long was in his first year, was a punt of 79 yards back in 2015 in his inaugural year. He only had one block punt out of 328 punts in his career with the Steelers. As a career high and average for punts with 45.6 yards per punt. That was his high in the second season of 2016. So there you have it with there. And like I said, I was a little surprised by that move. But hey, I mean, if you got like a two-time Pro Bowl here, plus a guy with Super Bowl experience too. I mean, Dustin Colquitt here. I mean, who has played a while. And don't forget too, I mean, Jordan Berry, I mean, right now, I mean, this guy, he is 29 years old. But you also got a guy in Colquitt right now who brings a lot of veteran experience. And this guy right now who's played in the league during his time, this guy is 38 years old. And I'd be really interested to see what he does here. I mean, with this team, I mean, how much of an impact he's going to make on this. Because I got to tell you right now, you got Danny Smith right here, who's one of the coaches on the Steelers team right now, who's been around since 2013. Very aggressive with his play calling, too. I'm sure they had to catch his eye as well, too. I mean, I don't think he didn't have much of a say in this. I believe he did. I mean, for a guy. I mean, the special teams, I've been saying for like last few years, including last few weeks, that the Steelers' special teams returns, especially more in particular, not just the punting, but I've always been on top of this team as demanding that. I mean, hoping that they would get like not only like defensive takeaways for touchdowns, but now I've also recently added to that too. Not just getting that, but he has special teams returns for touchdowns too. Because remember, Deontay Johnson just snapped a 5-year drought of a punt return for a touchdown. I mean, which was set by Antonio Brown. And then the last kickoff return for a touchdown he had was back in 2017 by Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, when you had pretty much all your guys aggressive against the winless Browns, who actually went on to go 0-16 that year, I mean, that was it. I really do believe the return game has got stepped up here a notch. So let's get into real quickly the big news. The biggest highlight of the day was Cam Heyward, defensive captain. Congratulations once again, Big Cam, as he is one of 5 captains named for the Steelers this year. Again, the team captains for this year, again, it is 2 on offense, Ben Roethlisberger, Marquise Pouncey, and then 3 on the defense, Cam Heyward, and T.J. Watt and Jordan Dangerfield. They are the first-time captains on this team. In case one of those join us, Welcome for those of you who are tuning in here to the Mass Steel Podcast. We're streaming live off on Facebook and Instagram right now. And as announced by Ian Rapport of NFL Network, Cam Heyward got a 4-year extension worth $65.6 million in new money, and which is about $16.4 million per year base salary, which adds up to 5 years, $75.1 million. He becomes the highest defensive player on base salary while over the age of 30. And I mean, that's incredible too. I mean, I really believe, like I said, I love rewarding guys with hard work here, and just been so noble. He's just been one of the best representatives and character on and off the field. And like in any other job, and like I said, excuse me for taking a parting shot at Le'Veon Bell, but I cannot help it at this point in time. It's the way you handle things in a professional way. I'm not saying he was like totally dissing the team out. I mean, yeah, he was playing the roles. I mean, you had a franchise tag. I mean, he was in his right not to sign. But I do believe communications is everything right there. And then by one of your teammates too. I mean, your offensive center obviously saying that you're going to be there on a certain day. You did not show up. I'm sorry. Listen, great guy. I wish him nothing but the best, but he did show up his teammates in a way. I hate to say that. I'm sorry for any one of those who are being turned off by what I'm saying. I'm not. I really believe this makes him look worse on so many levels right here. And you look at this guy, and I really do feel right now, I mean, this is going to be a special year. I really do believe so. Could happen at a beautiful time right now. I mean, yeah, Joe Hayden about a year ago, he got a 2-year extension, but as Ed Bouchette will always point out that the Steelers do not do 2-year extensions. They just tear up the contract, do a new 3-year deal right there. Made the Pro Bowl this past year. I mean, Joe Hayden right there. I mean, then you also had, I think, like about 2 years prior to that, you had Stephon Tuitt, I mean, who signed his nice extension, but then he got injured along the way. Not saying that's going to happen with Cam Heyward, but I think the last injury of significance he had was that torn pectoral muscle, and I believe he suffered that in a big blowout win against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football back in 2016. But anyway, congratulations once again, my man. More props to you. Got your money, man. Now go get that ring. I know that's one of the things you've been weighing to get on here. And let's go ahead and go over some of the cuts that were announced this past Saturday by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember, they had to trim their roster. I mean, to the 53-man roster. They had about 27 cuts made on that day. And here are the list of players that have been cut on Saturday. You had Paxton Lynch, Tariff White, Trey Edmonds and Wendell Smallwood, Syed Blacknail, DeAndre Tompkins, Deion Kane, Amara Darboh, and then you also have Ryan Switzer, Christian Delario, John Kenoy, Derwin Gray, Anthony Coyle, Jerron Jones, Kyle Markway, Kevin Rader. Then you also had Kevon Walker, Henry Mondeau, Calvin Taylor, Dan McCullers, Tuzar Skipper, J. Roland Elliott, Trajan Bandy, John Bale, Antoine Brooks, Corliss Waitman, and Liam McCullough. But other guys who did get signed to the practice squad, I mean, on that, and here's the practice squad guys you had on here. And of those guys that were released, you had 14 of those guys that were cut on Saturday, making it to the practice squad. Those guys are, and here's a practice squad list. You got Trey Edmonds, Wendell Smallwood, Deion Kane, Amara Darboh, Derwin Gray, Anthony Coyle, Jerron Jones, Kevin Rayner, Every Mondu. And then you had Dan McCullers, Trey Roland Elliott, Trajan, Bandy, Antoine Brooks, Carlos Waitman, Corliss Waitman, excuse me. And those are the guys you have on there too. And most recently today, you had Wendell Smallwood, running back, and Devlin Hodges, who also found a way back onto the Steelers too. You also had right now coming back right now. We also had the return of Josh Dobbs and Sean Davis. Remember Josh Dobbs, who actually got sent over to the Jaguars about a year ago, mainly because Mason Rudolph did enough to beat him out for the second number 2 job behind Ben Roethlisberger. Then you had Devlin Hodges, your number 3 quarterback. He actually comes back here. I think that's going to be a real interesting move when we look at the depth chart. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick here and see if we got an update on that. I've been trying to look at it. I mean, where we got their team captains found out right now. And here we go. Here's the depth chart for right now. And here's where we got quarterback for right now. So we got Josh Dobbs officially right now. He is listed as the number 3 quarterback in case anyone is wondering. If anyone's got a chance to look. So we'll be Ben Roethlisberger, followed by Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs will be the number 3 guy. Just updating for those of you who did not get a chance to go on Steelers.com. You're listening right here on the Matt Steel podcast. Be sure to go check it out when you get a second. And then, like I said, for the receivers, this is how you got it set out. Right now, you got Deontay Johnson as your first and second guys right there. And then the opposite receiver, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, Ray McLeod. So I'm not sure how that's going to translate. They're going to be using a slot receiver, how that's going to work out. And then the interesting thing right now, I remember one of the biggest things, too, we're looking at was the right tackle position. It looks like Zach Banner has won the right to be the right tackle over Troops Okorafor for right now as we look at it. And right now, as we look at, we're starting to pull it up and look it up right now on Trib Live. And the only thing is, I don't think it has been decided right now. But right now, he's still competing with Troops Okorafor for the right tackle position. It doesn't seem like anything has been settled right there. They're tied on that one spot. So I don't know if that's going to be a rotational thing, week to week, game by game. But we'll find out because remember, between there, don't forget, Troops Okorafor, he was a 3rd-round pick here. And Mike Tomlin isn't ready to announce a start just yet. And Tomlin did say you may see or listed on the depth chart, according to Tomlin, indicating both players will be listed. And like I said, I mean, you heard Zach Banner's response, basically understood that, you know what, at the end of the day, he's protecting one of the most important guys in Pittsburgh at this point. And that's very understandable at this point in time when we look at it. So, like I said, a lot of exciting stuff to get into right now. And let's go look at the defense, see where Sean Davis fits in right now. Sean Davis, who's actually come back to the Steelers as a strong safety. I cannot wait to see where he's going to be listed at. So he's going to be number 2 behind Terrell Edmunds, and Jordan Dangerfield will be number 3 on that list. But yet he's one of their defensive captains on here. So Terrell Edmunds seems like he's doing enough to have that job over Sean Davis. I mean, don't forget Sean Davis, who I believe, let's take a look at his profile here. Because I remember he went over to the Washington football team about a year ago. He was released last year by the Steelers. Or not with Washington, excuse me. Let's see here. Because I believe he signed with the Washington football team And he got released shortly after that. Take a look at him right now. Just correct my thought here. So remember, last year he entered the 2019 season as a starting free safety. Suffered a shoulder injury in week 2 that was placed on injury reserve on September of that year. He was signed by the Washington football team this past March, and then he was released on Labor Day weekend, which was Saturday. So he finds his way back in Pittsburgh as the number 2 guy. Like I said, goes from a starter to like a backup now. As a backup role. I'd be really interested to see. And I think the 2 surprise cuts that happened this weekend, too, I'm really surprised with this guy, Ryan Switzer. I mean, let's face facts. Great guy. I mean, interesting teammate here on this team. But like I said, the returns team, he was not cutting the mustard. He was not doing enough, I felt, to have an effective impact. He was an okay receiver at best at times. And he never really made enough splash plays. Because I remember the Steelers picked him up at the end of the preseason and cut weekend. Found his way onto this team. And I just never really felt like a guy like Switzer was like a secure fit for this team that they're going to be looking for. I mean, look at a guy like Ryan Switzer. Let's take a look at his numbers right now. I mean, this guy, don't get me wrong, very noble, but it was not enough. I mean, this guy right here, when we look at his overall kick and punt return average right now, for this guy, yards per return, career high was 8.8, but that was with the Cowboys. As far as with the Steelers, 8.4 back in 2018. He only had 252 yards, no touchdowns whatsoever on either kick or punt return. Kick returns, he did slightly better. 20.2 yards per return was his career high with the Steelers, 25 average career high, and that was with the Cowboys back in 2017, his rookie year. This guy just didn't have it, in my opinion. I liked him, but at the end of the day, it was just not enough real quick over here. So, there you have it. We got the captain's name, went over the cuts. Let's go ahead and end the show with fair or foul. We'll go around the league topic right now. You heard of Earl Thomas right now, who shockingly is no longer with the Ravens. A guy who's been named to the All-Decade team. This past offseason. Super Bowl champion, multi-time All-Pro. But it seems like his attitude has been being gained out of line as of late. And you had right now, one guy, Jimmy Smith on the Ravens, who sent a cold, cutthroat message. Regarding Earl Thomas, who played on the Ravens for many years. Jimmy Smith, by the way, who's one guy the Steelers had a hard time figuring out for the longest time. When going up against the Ravens, this guy is a Super Bowl champion. He's not a Pro Bowl. But here's what he had to say as far as on the release of Earl Thomas. It was unfortunate, but the Raven organization stands by certain principles. It's a certain type of culture here, and no matter who you are, you have to be a part of us. If you're not part of us, we don't really need you. End quote. Also, too, you also had the releases of Adrian Pearson, Adrian Pearson right now, who's actually played 13 seasons in his career. I can't believe that time went by so quickly right there. Former MVP, multi-all-pro, all-decade team. And you also got Clinton Dix right now. And one of the landing spots that as far as Adrian Pearson maybe looking into, maybe looking at possible playing with the Lions, Matt Patricia, he's possibly considering him. So we'll see how that ends up. But Earl Thomas right now, one of the things too, he pretty much grew up in Texas, Earl Thomas did. In his career, he was born in Orange, Texas, played college at Texas. Like I said, this guy's been a 3-time All-Pro, 7 Pro Bowl, around a Super Bowl champion, named to the All-Decade team. He played about 9 seasons of his career with the Seahawks, where he made a lot of traction. And I'd be really interested to see what happens. Will Jerry Jones be able to sign this guy? Because right now, I mean, they already punted on not giving Dak Prescott the proper contract he's due, I mean, for the year. So, and then you got Clinton Dix right now, who's on with the Cowboys. And which, by the way, Mike McCarthy's the head coach of that team. So, fair or foul, I will say Adrian Peterson will find a landing spot before any of these two. I will say fair on that one. Adrian Peterson, who's on the silver board, like Gore, who I think is still with the Bills. I mean, you still got a chance. I mean, right now, I mean, both guys like in top 10, like in rushing. Take a look at the updated list on that. But I mean, you got guys real quick over here who really made their strides in the run game. You got Frank Gore, who's third all time in rushing. I mean, this guy is only about like over 1,000 yards for being on number 2, passing off Walter Payton. Then you got Adrian Peterson, who's 5th on this list with 14,216 yards. If he's able to play for a team and get over at least, I'd say, 1,100 yards, he'd be passing off Barry Sanders for 4th, and he'd be right behind Frank Gore. So you got Evan Smith, Walter Payton, Frank Gore, Barry Sanders, and Adrian Peterson as your top 5 running backs. The remaining 5 after that is Curtis Martin, LaDainian Thompson, Jerome Bettis at number 8. Still not a bad spot after he retired. He's still the top 10. Eric Dickerson at number 9, Dickerson. And then last but not least, Tony Dorsett. And there you go. And there we have it. And that's going to do it for a wrap for this edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast. Remember, Thursday night, you're going to be having the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Houston Texans in a divisional rematch of the AFC playoffs. That game will be taking place Thursday at 7:20 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check out that game as usual on for that game. That game will be on NBC. For Charles Richey of the Mass Steel Podcast, make sure to join me this Wednesday. Hopefully I'll have someone on with me this time around, and we'll give you more of a Steelers season preview for the 2020 campaign as we inch closer and closer. Hey, thanks a lot, Steelers Squad, for joining me. I appreciate the support. We're still Steeler fan. Amanda, thank you very much. Always nice keeping in touch with you. Thanks so much for joining. Appreciate you checking it out. And Goat 3-timer, if I'm saying that correct, Goat_3-timer join. For the Mass Steel Podcast, as always, leave everyone, as I be signing off, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, students. Here we go. I gone.